Thank you. Welcome to the October 17th, 2018 Wareham Conservation Commission meeting. For information, we are being recorded and will be played back on WCTV at some time in the future. And all comments on projects should be limited to those that are controlled by the conservation bylaws. I think I've said it, right? Anything else? I covered it. Okay. May we have attendance, please?
Yes, ma'am. Yeah, agency, yeah, okay.
You missed last meeting. You forgot.
Alyssa Hurd, Mary Taggart, Joe Leggett, myself, Ken Baptiste, Chairwoman Sandy
Yep.
Slavin, and Agent David Pichette.
Thank you. We have a continued hearing for South Coast Hospital Group, and they have requested that we continue to the next meeting on 11/7. Is there anybody here for that hearing? I'd like to have a motion to continue until 11/7. I have Mary's motion. Second by Alyssa. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstained. The South Coast Hospital is continued. The next continued hearing is Kenneth Keegan. Please come forward and identify yourself for the record, please.
I'm Brendan Mullaney from Bracken Engineering here tonight on behalf of the applicant, Kenneth Keegan.
Okay, here's revised plan. Okay. And planting schedule for it.
I'm working on it, Joe. Microphones.
Now that we've passed out the revised plan,
That's the planting scheme.
all set,
We got one.
Mr. Bichette, can you speak to the project, please?
Again, the project site is at 35 East Boulevard, and this application is a project that involves the removal of trap rock that was placed at the site without permits, and then the reconstruction of a stone revetment on a coastal bank and within a coastal flood zone at this site. There was some additional features that were proposed on the site plan. Over several hearings, the commission has requested some changes to those plans, which are reflected in this most recent revised plan that we have in front of us. The parking areas have been scaled back to what was originally permitted. They've reduced the width of the stone trench around the foundation to about 1.5 feet. They still do have the proposed decks between the house. That's something I had recommended against in the past, but that's up to the board's discretion. And the stone revetment, the commission had previously agreed on as currently proposed. So the other additional piece of information is they have also submitted now the marsh restoration plan to show the extent of marsh area that will be restored, that was altered at the property. So we do have a DEP file number. So I believe the commission is at a point where if they have questions, they can take those, ask those questions and then make a decision based on the revised plans that are in front of us.
Is there anything you'd like to add to that, please? Did I ask you to identify yourself?
Yes, Brendan Mullaney
Thank you.
from Bracken Engineering.
Thank you.
No, I'd be happy to answer any questions the commission has. We've basically taken all the proposed parking area, drainage infiltration in that area off the plan, and the other revisions that were requested by the commission over the last few hearings. So I'd be happy to answer any questions on the current
Okay,
plan.
thank you. For the record, Mr. Smith has arrived at 7:07.
I made it.
Any questions from the board?
None from me.
Thank you. I don't have any questions, Sandy. What you want for the, there.
Ladies, you want to continue to look?
No questions, Ann?
Brendan, I pulled out a document that we had on a previous hearing from August 2016. It's amazing what I have in my cellar. And what I have is I have a picture of the material that was in front of the building. And it isn't just grass, there's a lot of sea lavender there. Is there a possibility, did you want to take a look at what it was in 2016? Look at, I mean, it's just grown all the way to the house and it's all gone. But I would like to know, is it possible that we could include sea lavender with our conditions, that it be included with the planting of the salt marsh? Mr. Bichette, do you think that would be a doable?
I don't see why not. It's something that is available to be purchased at, you know,
Yeah, I'm sure we could get, it's, you know, it's not something you can go up to the local Olson's and buy, but you can get it, you know, through the nursery, and I'm sure that Ken can acquire that through his
Okay,
connections.
I would like to be back to what it was some time ago, so, okay.
Okay, if you could potentially send those photographs to me, or if I could get copies of them somehow.
Okay, if I leave them with you, Mr. Bichette, could you take copies, and then if I bring by tomorrow morning? Okay.
Great.
You're on record, you got my
all right.
2016 hearing. Okay. Anything else? Ladies, did you have any questions?
I just have one quick question. We have the riffraff that you have that's being taken out and replaced, and then you have this line of existing extent of loose seawall. Was that there originally, or was that something that the new owner just built?
No, that's historically been there. There was, as we discussed at past hearings, there was a series of licenses going back over 100 years on this property, and there was a seawall there at one point that has fallen into disrepair. Those stones are proposed to remain rather than remove them and cause additional
Alyssa, there's a
disturbance.
Photo of it, the old one is the darker wall that existed and fell apart, and the one closer to the shore is the one that was added, so that old line will stay.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right, is there anybody in the audience who would like to speak for or against this particular project? Seeing none? I have a motion to close the hearing.
Second.
I have a second. All in favor? Opposed? Abstained? Hearing is closed.
I'd like to make a motion to approve this project in entirety, with the addition of adding the sea lavender and waiver and a fine on this, on the completion of the replanting of the salt marsh area.
So the motion is to approve as presented with the addition of sea lavender included in the salt marsh.
Second.
I have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstained? Thank you. See Mr. Bichette before you start any work, and he has my master, so he can get you those, copy of those pictures.
Okay, great.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okey dokey, here we go.
Yep.
Okay, next up, Cape Cod Maple Park Campgrounds. Can you come forward and identify yourself, please?
Thank you.
Yep. Okay.
I'm Bill Madden from GAF Engineering here on behalf of Maple Park, Cape Cod Maple Park Campground. And I just have some revised plans
Thank you.
for
We'll share.
as well, half size.
We can share.
Oh, thank you.
Aren't you great putting it on small paper?
Thank you.
Well, my arms aren't long enough.
I also have two full size.
No, I was only kidding.
For people with short arms.
Okay, you have cards, right? Well, this is continued hearing. Mr. Bichette, do you want to speak to the project, please?
Sure.
How are they trying to do? Oh, this is the water line.
Thanks.
The pond.
The project site is at the Maple Park Campgrounds off Glen Charlie Road, and the project involves the installation of water main pipe in the buffer zone to bordering vegetated wetland and within the riverfront area of the Agawam River. The site is also within the estimated habitat of rare and endangered species. Approximately 800 feet of water main pipe would be installed from where the road crosses the Agawam River to the campground headquarter area. A 5-by-8 foot concrete vault with valves and meter pit would also be installed within the road area as shown. The water main is proposed within the existing dirt entrance road. This would involve trench work for the pipe installation. The work limit at its closest point is approximately 7 feet from the edge of the pond, which is where the road happens to be. Silt fence is proposed along the edge of the road for the length of the pipe installation. There's also 2 new fire hydrants that would be installed as shown on the plan. At the last meeting, we didn't have a DEP file number, which we do have now. Have you seen comments from Natural Heritage yet?
I have not, no.
I have not either, so, again, I have no problems with the project, but would have to recommend a continuance until we get those comments from Natural Heritage.
Thank you. Questions from the board? I'll start with Mr. Smith.
No, thank you.
All set? Kenny?
I'm good.
Joe?
No questions.
Mary?
No question.
None.
Alyssa? Anybody here in the audience who wants to speak to, for, or against this particular project? I'm seeing none. I'll make a recommendation that we're going to give the National Heritage another try and be back for 11/7.
Yes.
Okay, I take a motion to include, post, damn it, I'll try it.
Motion to continue to
Thank you,
11/7.
thank you, Joe. We are going to have a motion to continue to 11/7. I have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, opposed, abstained.
I just wanted to point out the 2 changes, the minor changes
Oh,
to the
that
plan.
would, I'm
the
saying
revisions.
myself, what did change?
They're very minor. One was the inclusion of the compost silt sock in conjunction with the silt fence. Originally, the plan just called for a silt fence erosion control barrier around, throughout the entire length. So the detail on sheet number 2 indicates the compost sock in conjunction with the silt fence. And then on the meter pit detail, we added, at the recommendation of the fire department, it's called a ladder-up telescoping extension safety post. So when the people from the water department are reading the meter or maintaining the double check valve assembly, they have that post that assists them in gaining access into the meter pit. So those were the two changes on the project. We've also put the project out to bid. It's a private project, so we've put it out to bid. We've received bids. We have not awarded the contract, but the owner is anxious to try to complete the work before the end of the year. So that's the latest and greatest on Maple Park Campground.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Would you rather read?
It is 7:15. We can start the hearings. Is it, if the board is willing, I'd like to take the Town of Wareham Municipal Maintenance Department next out of line.
Same.
We have our maintenance manager in the back, and I'd like to bring him forward,
Would you,
if it's all right.
would you prefer I preside on that
That's
so
the
you don't
fourth
have a
one,
conflict?
fourth hearing.
Why would I have a conflict? No?
Okay.
Thank you. The question was whether or not I should recuse myself on this hearing because my husband is a selectman, and my answer was no, I'm fine to take the hearing. Thank you.
You ready?
Yes, please.
Notice of public hearing. Pursuant to the provisions of the Massachusetts Wetland Protection Act, General Laws, Chapter 131, Section 40, and the Wareham Wetland Protective Bylaw, Division 6, a public hearing will be held in Room 320, Wareham Multi-Service Center, 48 Marion Road, Wareham, Mass., on Wednesday, October 17, 2018, at 7:15 p.m. On the notice of intent for the town of Wareham, the Municipal Maintenance Department, care of GAF Engineering, Inc., 266 Main Street, Wareham, Mass. 02571, for roadway improvements to Pilgrim Ave for property located on Assessors Map 50F, Lot NA, Pilgrim Ave, Wareham, Massachusetts.
We have small ones, you want, oh, there, it's,
That would be good.
you want a small one?
I think so.
It's all unfolded.
Okay, Mr. Bichette will speak to the project.
Did you get their names?
Oh, yes, please identify yourself again.
David Bernard, Municipal Maintenance Director.
Madam Chairman, I'm Bob Rogers with GAF Engineering.
The project site is at Pilgrim Ave in the Swifts Beach area, and the project involves road stabilization and resurfacing of that stretch of road, and this is along a coastal bank and within a coastal flood zone.
A lot of holes in there.
The site's also within the estimated habitat of rare and endangered species. A section of Pilgrim Ave along the water has become undermined and is deteriorating. The proposal is to stabilize and resurface this section of roadway to prevent further erosion of the road. It's proposed to install a granite curb anchored with concrete along approximately 300-foot stretch of road. And this is again along the coastal bank in Salt Marsh area where the deterioration is occurring. Trap rock is proposed then to be placed on the beach side of the curb to protect the toe of the curb once it's installed. The road would also be planed and resurfaced in this area. The existing guardrail that's there would remain in place. When I met at the site, we had talked about a couple of issues. One was the size of the stone to be used, and it was my viewpoint that it should be heavy enough material so that it doesn't get moved around in the tidal cycles or potential storms that might come through the area. It was also initially proposed to have the pavement flush with the granite curb so that runoff would just sheet flow off of the road onto the beach. This is sort of what currently goes on there at this point. When we discussed it, I had recommended looking into potential improvements to try to provide some stormwater treatment if that's possible at the site. The trap rock would need to be limited to approximately 5 feet of the curb so as not to get into the salt marsh area. There was also proposed on the plan a rip-rap plunge pool to be placed at the end of an existing drainage pipe. This would be more or less in the salt marsh, and I'd ask that that be pulled back outside of the marsh. Has that been reflected on this plan, or do we still have the original plan?
These plans are still from the original
Okay.
filing.
Yeah. So, we did get a DEP file number for the project, and we also did get comments from Natural Heritage, who did not have any concerns with the project at this time. So, generally speaking, the project needs to be done. The road is in poor condition, and, you know, the project needs to happen at some point to preserve that area. But at this point, I'd recommend a continuance to get the plan revisions that we had discussed so that that is formally in front of the commission on the plan.
Thank you. Bob?
Yes,
David,
Madam
any
Chair.
comments?
So, we've discussed this both in the office and with Mr. Menard, and so we would like to make two minor changes to the plan. We thought we were gonna have a natural delay with the timing that it normally takes Natural Heritage to respond. But in 8 or 9 days, they gave us our clean bill of health, and so here we are tonight. So we're agreeable to move the riprap plunge pool, and we'd like to make just a minor shift in the length and location of the granite curb. We just want to move that slightly to the east. And we are confident that the size of the riprap stone is not going to be impacted by tidal action. This is angular stone, 40 to 50-pound stone, that's normally used for pipe ends for erosion control. So it is heavy enough, in our opinion. It has the benefit of being able to be placed without a lot of machinery and effort. This project sort of evolved from being straight erosion control based on a prior 1997 plan, and then a repaving where the erosion control would take place. And then, since it requires a notice of intent and an order of conditions that you have three years to act upon, it became a resurfacing of all of Pilgrim Avenue. It was a pretty recent, just a couple of weeks ago, that municipal maintenance determined the location of that 12-inch outfall, and so we added a plunge pool onto the plans. What we would ask the commission to consider tonight would be, allowing us to just make those two minor changes and resubmit. We would respectfully request that the commission accept this plan tonight, close the hearing. We know it takes 21 days generally to get the order of conditions. Municipal maintenance would like to do the erosion protection, the granite curbing and the stone this season, and do the paving in the spring. And so if we get continued to the first meeting in November, you don't have a second, they most likely wouldn't be able to start any work until December. And I think, as we identify ways to improve upon this project, if it's possible, we have the ability to request an amended order of conditions to do those things.
Okay. David, anything to add?
The other thing too, I know, because when I was talking, when Dave met us down there, was trying the MS4 regulations is trying to improve, which it's an unfunded mandate. So I'm unfortunately I have to deal with my budget, and this is something I can do within my budget at this time. If we start, like he said, trying to put all kinds of different drainage upgrades and all kinds of stuff in this section of road, it's just not possible for me to do it at this time. It's something that we'd have to probably save for or something to get it done. Then we'd have to probably make some kind of temporary repairs to these spots that it's washed out of the road right now, which I think I'd rather do something more permanent for now and try to move forward. Done.
Mrs. Bichette, can you explain more about this wrap plunge pool?
There's
What you're trying to, I can see it on the plan, but I'm not sure what you're asking for.
Well, where it's currently proposed is basically in the marsh, so the marsh goes right up to this wall. So I'm asking it to be shoved back into here, so it's not actually in the marsh.
We'll move it behind the tree. It's still within the street layout.
Okay. And you were going to extend the granite curbing to the east? How far close to Smith Ave?
So right now, if where the word Pilgrim in Pilgrim Street is, that's the beginning of
The curbing.
the curbing and the erosion control. So we're going to slide that to the east, closer to where the sewer manhole is, and that was based on our field visit. And then we think we need to just extend it slightly to the east on the other end.
When I say east, you're going towards Smith Ave. Is that the east?
Yeah, correct, but it's
Okay.
only a matter of like 10 or 15 feet, so, we're probably pulling it back 30 or 40 feet on the west side and extending it, 10 or 15 feet on the east side.
It's going to be a little smaller than what it shows on the plan.
Okay.
It's about 300-foot length right now, so maybe it'll end up being 280.
So you'll be cutting those trees and brushes that's on the edge of the road
Correct, yeah.
to
there's-
make the room for the curb? Okay.
Yes.
Thank you. I just needed that. Question to the board, Mr. Smith.
No?
Kenny?
No.
Joe?
No questions. I'm fine with this and going with the route of voting on this tonight and stipulate that they're gonna move the riprap flange area and then have them come back if they have to do any amended orders and stuff like that. What is your actual start time frame that you want to get that going?
It's the weather. If it's, after the 21 days, if I can get in there and start, because there's a couple sections that, they got cones. It's a dangerous situation we're in
Yeah,
now,
I
so.
walked down there last week.
Yeah,
I'm
so-
surprised you're not even going farther.
So I might start and try to get in them, at least get them areas started to shore that up anyway, at least before the winter. I was gonna try to do that and at least get something started.
That's something I'd be willing to do in this one.
Mary, questions?
No question.
Alyssa?
No questions.
Is there anybody in the audience that would like to speak for this project? Anybody like to speak against this project? What would the board like to do?
As I stated, I'm ready.
Want to hear that, close the hearing and,
I am, as long
They're
as
fighting-
consensus is.
They're fighting the weather, they're
Get
fighting the
started
time
on
frame,
the
they're
weather.
fighting freeze.
okay.
Yeah, I think
So,
that's something that's
I'll
been
take a
done.
motion to close the hearing.
Closed.
I have a motion to close. I have a second. All in favor of closing the hearing? Aye. Opposed, abstained. Hearing is closed. Further action,
I
please.
make a motion that we approve this, in, with the idea that the riprap trapment is gonna be moved eastwardly.
West,
and- Westwardly more?
Easterly.
easterly, sorry.
All right, and then, we'll be back to do any kind of, changes and stuff like that on the amended order of conditions, and I just expect, both our department and you just have good communication back and forth as things arrive, and,
Absolutely.
okay.
Second.
I have a motion, I have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed, abstained. Okay,
Thank you very much.
thank you. So,
Get all
see
that
Mr.
extra
Pichette before you start the
We
work.
don't always get that extra.
Good night.
Right.
Next hearing,
Notice
please.
of public hearing pursuant to the provisions of the Massachusetts Wetland Protection Act, General Laws, Chapter 131, Section 40, and the Wareham Wetland Protective Bylaw, Division 6. A public hearing will be held in Room 320, Wareham Multi-Service Center, 48 Marion Road, Wareham, Mass., on Wednesday, October 17th, at 2018, at 7:15 p.m. On the request for determination of applicability for British Landing condominiums, care of Bristol South, Inc., P.O. Box 77, Raynham, Mass. 02767, to remove sections of concrete sidewalk pads and pour new pads for property located on Assessor's Map 46, Lot 1006, 53 Main Street, Wareham, Mass.
Thank you. Anybody here for the British Landing hearing? Wow.
Thought that was gonna be an easy one.
Is there anybody here that wanted to speak to or for or against the project? Seeing none,
Make a
shall we
motion
just,
to Continue to the
or
7th.
should we table?
Yeah, they might show up.
Can we table instead in case they show up?
Motion to table.
I have a motion to table,
Second.
and I have a second. We'll see if they appear. Next one, please.
Notice of public hearing pursuant to the provisions of the Massachusetts Wetland Protection Act, General Laws, Chapter 131, Section 40, and the Wareham Wetland Protective Bylaw, Division 6. A public hearing will be held in Room 320, Wareham Multi-Service Center, 48 Marion Road, Wareham, Mass., on Wednesday, October 17th, 2018, at 7:15 PM on the request for determination of applicability for Carl Schultz, 15 Roby Street, Wareham, Mass. 02571, for construction of a shed for property located on Assessor's Map 50D, Lots 6, 7, and 8, and 8, 15 Roby Street, Wareham, Mass.
Thank you. Please come forward and identify yourself.
Good evening. My name is Carl Schultz, and I live at 15 Roby Street.
Thank you. Mr. Bichette will read to the project.
You have the abutter cards.
Oh, you have the butter cards, the green cards?
Green cards.
Did you send out a butter notices?
Oh, we didn't know anything about that. Okay, so no, we didn't do that.
Okay, we will continue because you'll have to.
Okay, okay.
Post
You-
office?
You have to notify your abutters. I thought your contractor was looking into that.
Oh, he didn't mention it. I'm sorry, I
No,
apologize.
stay there. So you need a list of your abutters from the assessor's department, and then you have to send them the green cards, return receipt requested, but you're here, so Mr. Bichette will speak to the project.
Okay.
We can't
Roby Street.
close it tonight,
I
so.
understand. I apologize.
Right. Okay.
We're going to speak to it.
As was mentioned, the project is at 15 Roby Street in the Swifts Beach area, and the project involves the construction of a shed in the buffer zone to a coastal dune and also within a coastal flood zone. A 10 by 15-foot shed is proposed approximately 70 feet from the edge of the coastal dune and also within a coastal velocity zone. The shed would be constructed in the existing lawn area with a concrete slab-type foundation for the shed to sit on. No grade changes are proposed. I had no problem with the project and would have recommended the approval, but at this point, just recommend the continuance for the abutters.
Thank you. Any questions, or do you want to hold until the next meeting? Any questions? Anybody here that wanted to speak to or for?
Just a request.
Yes,
Could
I'm
we-
sorry.
No, no.
Yes, yes,
Could we-
Carl, it's your
I
turn.
won't be here on the 7th because I'll be out of state. Could we continue
Yes?
beyond that to the following meeting?
We don't know what we're going to have for a following week. It
Okay.
could very well be the first Wednesday in December.
Okay, no, I understand. That's
So-
fine. It's just that I won't
You
be
want to try the?
in.
Let's continue until the 7th for now, and then once we.
Well,
know-
we can continue until 11/7, and then continue it until we know our next meeting
Okay.
date, because our next meeting date is the day before
Great.
Thanksgiving, and we haven't voted on what we're going to do.
Okay,
So
great.
we'll continue to 11/7, and we will continue you one more time.
Great, thank
Okay,
you.
so
Yeah.
once
Could
you
my
come back,
son-in-law- If my son-in-law comes, would that be all right?
Sure.
yes,
Oh, okay, great, okay.
Yeah.
Just that I won't be in town
With green cards.
With
with
your-
green cards.
yes. So speak to Mr. Bichette tomorrow in the office if you have a chance as to what you need to do in
Great.
order to notify your abutters.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
I
I'll make a
appreciate it.
motion to, I need a motion, please.
Motion to continue?
I have a motion to continue until
7th?
11, on the 7th of November. I have a
Second.
motion.
Second.
I heard a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained?
Thank you for your time.
Notice of public hearing. You ready? Pursuant to the provisions of Massachusetts Wetland Protection Act, General Laws, Chapter 131, Section 40, and the Wareham Wetland Protective Bylaw, Division 6, a public hearing will be held in Room 320, Wareham Multi-Service Center, 48 Marion Road, Wareham, Mass., on Wednesday, October 17th, 2018, at 7:15 PM, on the request for determination of applicability for Sunrays Development LLC, care of GAF Engineering, Inc., 266 Main Street, Wareham, Mass. 02571, for the construction of a ground-mounted solar energy generation facility on property located on Assessor's Map 108, Lot 1001C, 2382 Cranberry Highway, Wareham, Massachusetts.
Thank you. Please come forward. Identify yourself for the record and green cards. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. My name is Bob Rogers with GAF Engineering.
Thank you. Mr. Bichette will read to the project.
The project site is at 2382 Cranberry Highway, and the project involves the construction of a solar array at this site. The applicant has filed this application as a requirement of the site plan review process. The site is actually not within the jurisdiction of the Conservation Commission under any of the local or state wetland laws. So therefore, I would recommend issuing a negative determination for this application, number 1 and number 6, which basically states that the site is not within the commission's jurisdiction.
Anything to add?
No, Madam Chairman, as the agent stated, this is a formality required by the zoning regulations. We applied for a special permit site plan review, and we're required under that process to file an RDA with the commission. So.
Was there anybody here that wanted to speak to or for this project? Because I was going to say, there's nothing we can handle. I just wanted to let you know that there is no discussion on this because it is outside of what we can oversee.
-6.
So
Negative.
I'll make, and is there any questions from the board?
No.
I am not hearing any.
I do have, Dave, what was it, number 1 and the number
1 and
6?
1 and
Negatives?
6. Negative, yeah.
Thank you.
I'll take a motion to close the hearing.
Close.
I have a motion. I have a second. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstained. The hearing is closed.
Motion to give a -1 and a -6 for this project?
I have a motion for a -1 and 6 for the project.
Second.
I have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstained.
Notice of public hearing. Pursuant to the provisions of the Massachusetts Wetland Protection Act, General Laws, Chapter 131, Section 40, and the Wareham Wetland Protective Bylaw, Division 6, a public hearing will be held in room 320, Wareham Multi-Service Center, 48 Marion Road, Wareham, Mass, on Wednesday, October 17th, 2018, at 7:15 p.m. On the notice of intent for Glenn Priolo, care of GAF Engineering, Inc., 266 Main Street, Wareham, Mass. 02571, to construct a new dwelling, driveway, grading, and associated utilities for property located on Assessor's Map 54, lots 28 and 29, 6 Preservation Lane, Wareham, Massachusetts.
We have revised plans, so class them back down, please.
Pass it
He
back.
has
Fold it up
revised.
again.
Here's the new ones. New ones.
Trade
Gonna
it.
keep them with this existing paperwork?
Yeah.
Or are we gonna toss them?
Nope, keep the existing paperwork.
With the existing paperwork.
Just gonna thank you, Madam Chair. My name is Bob Rogers with GAF Engineering, representing the Priolis this evening.
And Dave will now speak to the project, now that we have our
Got
paperwork.
lost.
This project location is at 6 Preservation Lane, which is off of Cremisa Road. And the project involves the construction of a single-family dwelling, site work, installation of utilities, and this is in the buffer zone to bordering vegetated wetland and within a coastal flood zone at this site. A 30 by 50-foot dwelling is proposed within a coastal velocity zone, elevation 18, with some of the site work also being in the buffer zone wetland. The dwelling is proposed to be on town sewer and water. The sewer tie-in would require the installation of approximately 380 feet of gravity sewer line and 2 manholes within Preservation Lane, and another 550 feet of force main that would come from the house to the first manhole in Preservation Lane. There's an existing driveway that was put in years ago to get to this lot. Some gravel may have to be added to that driveway to make it smooth again. The house would be constructed on concrete pilings because it is in a velocity zone. There will be some minor grading around the house as shown on the plan, and silt fence is proposed around the house envelope and silt fence and hay bales are proposed along the edge of the driveway where the utility installation is proposed in close proximity to the wetland. I have not seen a DEP file number for this project at this time. I don't know if you've gotten anything on it.
No, we did not.
So with that, I would have to recommend a continuance of the hearing to the next meeting, which is 11/7.
Bob, any comments on the project, please?
No, I would just answer any questions that the commission might have.
Okay, Mr. Smith.
No, I have nothing.
Kenny?
I'm concerned about the water table and
Speak
How much-
into the mic, please.
The water table and how much dewatering is going to have to be done there.
Well, I couldn't tell you the exact amount of dewatering. The water line basically would be the lowest utility. We do have a dewatering basin located on the plans and detailed on the detail sheet. It certainly depends upon what time of the year the construction actually takes place. Dewatering is always a tough one, but, it has to be monitored. And if it's not adequate, you either stop the work or increase the dewatering. So, it's certainly a legitimate concern that we've just tried to cover it with details and notes on the plan.
okay.
I have no questions.
Mary?
No question?
Melissa?
No.
It's my understanding you have to put in the sewer line because there is no space on this lot in order to do a septic system,
Correct. We would never be able to meet the setbacks.
in case anybody asked why we have 880 feet of sewer to be dug. The force main of 500 and 380 of the gravity.
Yeah, so my understanding is that, we would have preferred to go the force main all the way, but it was a request of the sewer department to run gravity in Preservation Lane. So that was a decision that was essentially mandated by the sewer department, the gravity section. A 2-inch or 1.5-inch force main for one single-family house is pretty easy to put in. Doesn't cause any I&I concerns.
Question you asked too about the sewer installation. The other homes would be allowed to tie into that or would be afforded the ability to tie into that. Stubs
And-
are proposed as part of this project.
So stubs
each.
are proposed.
Yes.
Because the homes that are along Preservation are fairly new. One still is in the construction, so I'm sure their Title V will last them 5 years.
Well,
But they will not, sorry.
Hopefully more, hopefully 20.
It's a non-topic question, so I'll ask the sewer commissioners when we meet tomorrow night.
good.
So is there anybody here that was for or against this project? Yes. You come up forward and identify yourself, and we are going to continue the hearing, but please feel free to speak now.
So I'm Bob Bulis, and I own the house that is almost built on Preservation Lane. And I had to put a fairly elaborate septic system in. So my question is, you mentioned something about 5 years or hopefully more. Is the system I put in, am I going to be mandated to tie into this system at some point down the road?
I cannot answer that question. Since I would expect that would be the sewer commissioners that would be asking that you should be asking that question of. We meet tomorrow night in room 27 of the town hall. And but it is not something being mandated by the town. It's available if you want it, but I cannot speak for the sewer commissioners, even though I am a sewer commissioner. But I'm not here representing them as a full board, okay? But it is a consideration, but if you've just put in a major nitrogen-reducing Title V, yes.
Yeah, well, this is a entirely privately funded construction. So it's not like a normal
So-
town project, betterment project where people, so my expectation, my hope would be that he would be allowed to, unless and until his system fails, he shouldn't be forced to tie
No.
into this.
And I,
But at the point where he might need to replace his system, then I
it's
think
possible, because there would not be any betterment charge, because it isn't being mandated by the town to hook up. So, a topic for tomorrow night, if you have the time to come visit us. Okay,
Thank you.
but we're going to continue the hearing until November 7th. I need a motion, please.
So moved.
I have a motion.
Second.
I have a second. All in favor of continuing? Aye. Opposed, abstained?
thank you very much.
Next one, please.
Notice of public hearing. Pursuant to the provisions of the Massachusetts Wetland Protection Act, General Laws, Chapter 131, Section 40, and the Wareham Wetland Protective Bylaw, Division 6, a public hearing will be held in room 320, Wareham Multi-Service Center, 48 Marion Road, Wareham, Mass. On Wednesday, October 17th, 2018, at 7:15 p.m. On the notice of intent for Linda Murata, care of J.C. Engineering, Inc., 2854 Cranberry Highway, East Wareham, to construct a new single-family dwelling driveway, septic system grading, and associated utilities for property located on Assessor's Map 128, Lot 2, 261 Glen Charlie Road, East Wareham, Mass.
All right. Thank you.
Good evening, Brad Bertolo with JC Engineering.
Thank you. I'm looking at something else. Okay. Pass that down, please. And I see we have the green cards.
Only need two.
Did you go by this one? Did you go by this one?
No, I didn't. What is this?
This project site is at 261 Glen Charlie Road, and the project involves site work associated with the construction of a single-family dwelling in the buffer zone to bordering vegetated wetland at the site. The dwelling, which has already been constructed, is outside the buffer zone to the wetland. The owner is now filing this application to clear some land in the back of the house in the buffer zone to create some yard area. The project calls to clear trees in the buffer zone, regrade the area, and then loam and seed. The clearing is proposed up to the 30-foot no-activity zone line. Hay bales and silt fence are proposed between the work and the resource area. There is a bit of a slope to this property, and so I had a concern for the time of the year that this might occur, because if they attempt to do something, you know, in the next month or two, the slope is going to go the whole winter without being able to be stabilized with vegetation. So they would have to take some other measures in terms of installing erosion control blankets or something of that nature to keep that slope stabilized. So that's essentially what the project entails. We did not receive a DEP file number for this project. So, again, I would have to recommend that we continue the hearing for that purpose.
Brad, is there something you'd like to add to the project?
We did speak with the applicant, and they're willing to delay any work until the spring, so that the bank is as is until the next growing season. But other than that, would accept a continuance due to the non-file number.
Thank you. Questions by the board? Alyssa?
No.
Mary?
No.
Joe?
I did see this site. I do have the same kind of concerns over that, the incline that's in the back there, so that's it.
Kenny?
Nope.
Jim?
Nope.
Yes, I did have a chance to visit that site, and that is a pretty steep slope. My Crocs did not like walking down or back up it. Took the wrong shoe, but that's beside the point. No DEP. Is there anybody here that wanted to speak for or against this project? Seeing none, we're gonna,
Motion to continue?
we have a motion continue until 11:07.
November 7th?
Second.
All in, second? Did I hear a second?
Yes.
Yes,
Second.
sorry.
Yeah.
All in favor of continuance? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, 11:07.
Notice of public hearing pursuant to the provisions of the Massachusetts Wetland Protection Act, General Laws, Chapter 131, Section 40, and the Wareham Wetland Protected Bylaw, Division 6. A public hearing will be held in room 320, Wareham Multi-Service Center at 48 Marion Road, Wareham, Mass. On Wednesday, October 17, 2018 at 7:15 p.m. on the notice of intent for Michael Cheney, care of Environmental Consulting and Restoration LLC, P.O. Box 1319, Plymouth, Mass. 02362. Construction of a single-family dwelling with appurtenances and landscaping for property located on Assessors Map 127, Lot 1007D, 276 Glen Charlie Road, East Wareham, Mass.
Thank you.
Thank you. Please come forward and identify yourselves, please.
Good evening, Commission. My name's Cameron Larson with Environmental Consulting and Restoration. Also here with me, the property owner and applicant, Michael Cheney.
Mr. Bichette, please.
The project site is at 276 Glen Charlie Road, and the project involves the construction of a single-family dwelling in the buffer zone 2 bordering vegetated wetland. The site is also within the estimated habitat of rare and endangered species. The wetland flags at the site were checked, and there were a few changes made to the line, and these are reflected on the plan that we have in front of us tonight. 35 by 48-foot dwelling is proposed, approximately 75 feet from the edge of the wetland. Some site work has already taken place at the site in terms of clearing and stump removal. There is an existing brush and log pile at the site that is in the buffer zone to the wetland. There had also been some previous clearing at the site, it looks like, that was done by the prior owner. That was done prior to the current owners purchasing the lot. The proposed septic system would be outside the buffer zone, and the site would have town water. Gravel driveway is proposed at the site. Straw wattles are proposed for erosion control. I would recommend that hay bales and silt fence be used on the northern edge of the construction, which is closest to the wetlands. We did receive comments from Natural Heritage, and they had no negative comments about the project. We also have received a DEP file number for the project, so I would recommend the approval of the project with the standard conditions and the added conditions for hay bales and silt fence, as I had mentioned. There were also some previously cut trails. I had spoken to the applicant about the fact that those should be allowed to revegetate. So I'd also include that condition as well in the order of conditions.
Anything you would like to add to the project?
Not at this time, just happy to answer any questions that you guys might have.
Okay. Alyssa?
I have no questions.
Mary?
No question.
Joe?
Do you have any plans for removing, there's a big pile of brush, wood, and stumps that's gonna be asked to be removed?
Yeah, all the logs and stumps are definitely intended to move. The ones that are there are pine, and so that, I have to figure out what to do with that.
Okay.
The brush pile, I had originally had thought there was sort of some brush in that spot, which is why I chose to add to it. And it seemed like it would just be kind of a natural habitat and decompose over time,
It'll be in your way more than anything, that's a big pile.
Yeah, I mean, so I'm amenable to doing whatever. I mean, wood chipping it seems like it would create another pile of stuff to to remove, so I don't know what the timing that you would want me to do it, but I'm open to whatever you want so we can get this going.
Burnable.
Get a burning permit.
Burn it.
Kenny?
Permit in January,
Burn it in January?
before you build.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can.
Okay, I mean,
You go to
I'm
the fire
happy to
station.
do that, or in January to figure out what I can't burn and chip or do, you know, come back and see what you want me to do, but as long as we
Okay, no other questions from me.
I'm all set.
Kenny?
I'm good.
Is there anybody in the audience want to speak for this project, against this project? I do have a question. I did have a chance to visit the site. You're building in the hollow. Will that be used as your foundation point, so you don't have to clear so much?
Well, that's why I tried to pull the house forward a little bit to start to pull out of that hollow, but I was wary of getting too close to the, you know, you're kind of in a tough spot. I didn't want the commission to have an issue with me getting too close to the river, so,
Or too close to the road, whichever way you pull it.
yeah, I don't want to go closer to the road, you know what I mean?
That is a noisy road.
So, I don't know, my builder's here, David. So what is the question exactly? I mean,
Well, just that-
the bottom of the foundation, there was some
there's
question
2 feet
about
problem.
that maybe there might be fill needed, but the foundation has to go down to bearable soil.
I guess that was one of my questions. Do you need fill for that hollow,
We-
or will that be the height of your cellar?
We haven't, it's not been 100% determined yet, I guess?
Okay,
Yeah,
We're still
part of
working
that's
on that?
gonna, you know, depending on the quality of the soil, once we, you know, dig as little as we can, but I have to get down to good bearing soil, so I can't say 100% certainty how deep I'm gonna have to go there.
okay. Thank you. Ms. Bichette, what do you suggest for getting rid of that brush pile? A burn, a chip? or-
Either way is acceptable, you know, whatever is preferable to the owner. There's no specific thing that has to be done, as long as ultimately it
It-
leaves
it
as the
goes away.
commission wants. And so whatever way is easiest for the applicant.
Burn permit is January 15th.
Okay.
Got on a fire station, it's $10. Then you
I'm
burn any
I'm
time you do.
totally fine with that, and if burning doesn't seem feasible at that time, I'll make another decision.
That's
As
fine.
long as we can wait till then, that'd be great.
I think we're done.
Motion to close?
I have a motion to close the
Second.
hearing, and I heard a second. All in favor? Aye, opposed, abstained? Hearing is closed.
Motion to approve the standard conditions plus the added condition of hay bales and fence to be used on the north side. The wood pile and stumps and branches that to be removed one way or another. Allow the 2 trails that are on the site to grow back in.
I have a motion.
Second.
I heard a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained?
Oh,
Thank you.
Great, thank you very much.
See Mr. Bichette before you start any work. You have to wait for your order of conditions.
Okay, thank you very
Nice
much.
site up there.
Yeah, I'm very excited to get going. It's been a
I'd be
long,
happy to just leave the camper there.
thank you.
All right, I think, is there anybody here for British Landing? I will take a motion to untable it.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion. I have a second?
Yeah.
I have a second. We've untabled it. So, Alyssa, if you could read.
You want that read again?
No, I don't think we have to, we don't have to
No, we
read.
just
do
tabled.
it. No, so, you've got your green cards. What are these? Is it British Landing? Okay, Mr. Bichette will speak to the project. No, I'm upset, thank you. Please identify yourself for the record.
Russell Ewell, I represent Bristol South Management. We're the property managers of British Landing.
Thank you. Mr. Bichette will read the project.
The project site is at 53 Main Street, which is British Landing condominiums. The project involves the reconstruction of a section of sidewalk in the buffer zone to a coastal bank and within the riverfront area of the Wareham River, and also within a flood zone. 2 sections of the existing deteriorating concrete walkway are to be chipped out, leveled, and resurfaced. These areas are in front of 2 of the piers at the site. Some of the work has already started as far as removal of the deteriorated sidewalk. The sidewalk is to be placed in the same footprint as the existing, and this is right up to the edge of the bulkhead along the river. The associated brickwork is also to be reinstalled as original. Any excess material would be removed from the site. We had reviewed some similar work in the past, which the commission had approved, and again, I would recommend approval of this work with the issuance of a negative determination number 2 for the project.
Russell, is there anything you'd like to add to that project, to
No.
that comment?
That pretty much sums it up.
Questions?
None.
Melissa, Mary,
No questions.
Joe, Kenny?
The job was already started
Yes,
without a permit?
yes.
Jim?
No?
I have a question. I noticed, yes, I noticed you're working on 2 sites, but just down that sidewalk closer to Zecco, your 3rd site's caving in.
Yeah, we're working within a budget. We've been doing this. We came in several years ago for a much larger section closer to Baker's property next
Okay.
door. This is what the budget allows for now, and we'll probably be in here next year for that last and final section.
Yeah, maybe you could pick up the loose bricks that are sitting, that are laying on the
That's-
sidewalk.
Yeah, those will be gone.
Okay. Anybody here for the project to like to speak to it? Against the project? I'm seeing none.
Motion to close?
I have a motion to close the hearing.
Second.
I have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, abstained?
Motion to grant, well, issue a -2 determination on this project.
Can we throw a fine in there for,
It's up to the,
because the work was started before?
Was it loose or more dangerous before? I mean,
Was it a hazard?
Doesn't matter. I mean, you still got to notify the board that it's an emergency. I think there should be a $100 fine anyway, just for the late notification.
and they've done the work before, closer to the Barker property, so they knew, knew the requirement of approval. So I have a request for a $100 fine.
Want to add that into my motion?
Yes.
It's up to the board. So when we make the motion, it includes the $100 fine. If you don't want to do it, then you don't approve the motion, and we'll try again.
I think
Okay.
we just
I
use
have a,
the fines for if we wouldn't have gone with a negative on an RDA.
No, the fine, my reasoning for the fine is the fact that you're on the water and you didn't notify anybody. I mean, you work around there, you must know you have to do that.
Can I speak? I'm not sure if you've
yes,
closed anything.
please.
Yeah, when we went in for the original work that was done several years ago, it was extensive. We dug up about 60-plus feet of sidewalk. We went all the way out to the bulkhead. What we're doing now is simply, and we dug down, we repacked, we put drainage systems in. It was pretty elaborate. In a situation like that, we came before the board and received the permits to do it. This time, shame on me, I guess, we are simply taking up 4-foot sections of sidewalk, and there is both brick and concrete between it and the actual outside of the bulkhead. I honestly thought we're digging out 4 inches of concrete and repouring it just so people wouldn't trip. I didn't think it required. Shame on me, I guess, for that.
No, that's why I'm only saying 100. I'm being easy.
Okay,
I'll add that to my motion.
we have a motion for -2 and a $100 fine.
Second.
I have a second. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Please seize Mr. Bichette before you would continue the work.
Sure, thank you.
Just make sure the paperwork's completed. Thank you.
What is this you got? This one here.
All right, we have continued hearings. Savory Brothers in care of J.C. Engineering. Anybody for that project?
We did that.
Okay. Please identify yourself for the record.
Good evening, Brad Bertolo, JC Engineering.
You.
We have a continued hearing at 8 Franklin Street. Mr. Bichette will read to the project.
Been good at this. Don't tell nobody. Yeah, I know.
The project, again, is at 8 Franklin Street in the Agawam Beach area, and the project involves upgrading a septic system in the buffer zone to a coastal bank and within a coastal flood zone. The existing cesspool is to be replaced with a new Title V nitrogen-reducing system. The new leach field would be approximately 73 feet from the top of the coastal bank, which is just across the street from the subject property. And again, the site is in a coastal flood zone AE elevation 14. There is also some grading that would be done at the site, so some fill would be needed to change the elevation or raise it by approximately a foot to 2.5 feet. There would also be a driveway reestablished in the same general area that it currently exists. At the last meeting, we did not have a DEP file number for the project, which we have now since received, and so I would recommend approving the project and issuing the order of conditions with the standard conditions and the added conditions for pervious driveway and low nitrogen fertilizer for the site.
Brad, anything to add?
No, no. Dave did actually ask about the amount of fill, and it was roughly 240 yards.
240?
Slightly less than that, because some of it's part of the septic system, but between pre and post. And that's necessary for the raising of the septic system to provide adequate separation from the seasonal high groundwater.
Thank you. For the board's questions, Alyssa?
No.
Mary?
No questions?
No.
Kenny? Jim?
No.
Anybody in the audience wants to speak for this project, against this project? Seeing none?
Motion to close the hearing?
A motion to close the hearing.
Second.
I have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? The hearing's closed.
Okay, motion to grant with standard stipulations plus standard conditions plus driveway being impervious material and the use of low to no nitrogen fertilizer.
Second.
I have a motion, I heard a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Please see Dave before you start the work.
Thank you.
Sorry, we won't tell nobody. Scratch paper.
We have one more continued hearing. Steve Dorr, J.C. Engineering. Please identify yourself for the record.
I'm Steve Dwyer, the property owner.
Thank you.
Brad Bertolo, JC Engineering.
Okay. Mr. Bichette? We have new plans.
Yes.
to the project?
The property site is at 250 Barker Road, and this application is being filed, or was filed as an after-the-fact filing for some unpermitted work that had taken place at the site. Commission had previously approved a project at the location which involved the removal of an existing dwelling and deck and the reconstruction of a new dwelling and deck at the site, and the reconstruction of existing patio and retaining walls in the buffer zone to Glen Charlie Pond. As we had discussed at the last meeting, there was some additional work that took place at the site after the commission had issued the certificate of compliance for the original application. And this included landscaping activities, the reconstruction of a retaining wall along the edge of the pond, the installation of granite steps, and the installation of an irrigation system at the site. At the last meeting, we had requested a revised plan to reflect the removal of some features that were placed within the 30-foot no-activity zone, and to have that area reestablished with natural vegetation. And also to require some removal of the sod that was up against the edge of the pond, and provide a filter strip between that and the edge of the pond. These things have been shown on the revised plan that we have in front of us, with one exception. The revised plan did not show the removal of the stone retaining wall that was in the area that we had asked to be put back to natural. So that's the only issue that I have that needs to be addressed. Otherwise, I believe the revised plan does reflect what the commission had requested, and would recommend the approval of the order of conditions to do the work, with the added condition that the water source for the irrigation only be taken from the well and not from the pond, and that low nitrogen fertilizer be used at the site going forward.
Do you have any comments on the project?
The removal of the stone wall was an oversight on my part. It's less than a foot high, and I don't believe there's an issue with that being removed or added as a condition to this project. It doesn't appear to be mortared in place. It's just loosely stacked. So it'd be pretty easy to remove.
It does actually hold back that bank, though, to some extent, so we'll just have to make sure we plant bushes there or something. We have to accommodate that.
Yep. Which I picked up in this picture. Okay. Questions from the board? Melissa?
I'm just looking where
Okay,
this little
then
retaining wall.
I'll start up. Jim?
No.
Kenny?
Not yet.
Joe?
No questions.
Mary?
Is this wall helping to maintain the banking there?
Now, here's a copy of the wall, of the existing wall.
Are you talking this one or this one?
This one right here.
That-
That's the wall. Sorry, my printer is having a tough time giving me good pictures.
You've got ink problems.
Yes, I have problems with that printer.
No questions.
No questions?
All right.
Do we have a plan? Oh, there it is. Never mind. So you will be removing the existing evergreens that are there?
If that's what you want, yeah. I mean, I could plant around them. I could add those other shrubs around them, but if you
But
want those
they're-
removed, we can remove them.
So that you're planting. Anybody here like to speak for this project, against this project? Any board has any questions? If not,
Is this reflecting actually the planting over on that side?
well, this is what's there now.
Yeah, what I'm got before us now, is that reflecting what we wanted them to go back to do?
Yes.
It does, okay.
Yeah.
Except for the wall. The wall's got to be removed.
Right.
if we choose that.
Yeah.
Okay,
One question with that planting, I would say, we'll work with Agent Pichette, but gotta be reasonable as to what plants we can get and how they all fit into that bank and everything. Brad did the best he could drawing it on the plan.
Yeah, the things he identified are pretty readily available, so it should be fine, but certainly we can work that out if there's an issue.
okay, take a motion to close the hearing.
Motion to close?
I have a
Second.
motion. I have a second. All in favor of closing the hearing?
Aye. Okay, I make a motion to approve with a couple of other conditions or stipulations, and that first one be the irrigation, the lawn area and stuff like that should only be taken from the well and not from the pond. That the stone wall is to be removed. The replanting schedule, you work closely with the agent, conservation agent Dave Plachette, to make sure it's done right. Again, I want this as stipulations, no more gas storage of any kind within 30-foot area of that pond edge. Use of only slow-release, low-nitrogen fertilizers. And I'm going to ask for a $300 fine, but this is all after the fact in violations. That would be my motion.
I have a motion.
Second.
I heard a second.
Is questioning still?
Oh, sorry, I do,
We
I'm
already
sorry.
closed it.
I'm in a bun.
I'm sorry,
I'm a next door neighbor.
I failed to allow for hearing discussion. Yes, please come forward and identify yourself, and I apologize to the board and to the audience.
You did ask.
I did ask?
Yeah, yeah.
I did ask.
You've seen me
I
before.
Yeah,
My
but I
name is
thought-
Patricia Drummond. I live at 254 Barker Road,
Okay,
and I'm in a butter. And I just wanted to know, I heard you say, I'm a little bit deaf, so I'm not sure I heard it all. They have to he has to take out the stone wall.
at the base of that, to the- yes,
What is it going to be replaced with?
nothing.
This wall, Pat.
Oh, that
Not
wall,
that wall.
not
No.
that wall.
Right.
Oh,
No,
okay.
so this is
All
the
right,
little.
okay.
The one on the
I
pond.
misunderstood. I thought it
No, no,
was
no.
holding the water back.
No,
Okay.
no, holding the plants back,
fine.
and
I withdraw my question.
okay, thank you.
I'm sure you appreciate it.
All right, I'm sorry,
Motion.
we have a motion,
Second.
I have a second, all in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained? I guess to work with Dave on your plantings. Thank you.
Thank you.
Now, can I use the judgment of the landscaper as far as when to put those in, now or in the spring? You were talking about the slope for the other property earlier in the hearing. I'm a little concerned
Yeah.
tearing that up.
No, it makes sense, given the time of the year, that if it has to wait till the spring, then that's acceptable.
I mean,
I think if he's got availability, we could get it done, but if he says I can't get to it for a month, then I'll have to deal with it.
Right. Very good.
Thanks.
Thank you.
we have enforcement orders. Mr. I think that's it, right?
That's it, yeah. Can I call the first one out?
For Stephen Neves,
Steve Neves.
Nevs, 17117 Barker Road, please come forward and identify yourself for the record.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Stephen Neves at 117 Barker Road.
All right, and Mr. Bichette will let us know, comment on the particular enforcement order.
Yes, this enforcement order was issued for this project location, which is 117 Barker Road, which fronts along Bartlett Pond at that site. There's been some alterations of the land in the buffer zone to the pond and right up to the edge of the pond, which involved the removal of some vegetation, placement of some structures and so forth along the edge of the pond. The Mass Natural Heritage Office had also issued a letter to the property owner, basically making the same statements. Did you get that letter from them?
Yeah, I got a letter from Mass Wildlife, right?
Right. So essentially, that's the issue. There was work done at this location with no permitting, and it's primarily work that would not have been allowed by the commission in such close proximity to the edge of the pond. And some of the work may not even be on this owner's land. It may be on the state's land. So that's a separate matter to be determined, but that's why Mr. Neves was asked to come to the commission tonight to explain his side of the story at this location.
Your turn.
Thank you. First of all, I'd like to say, as property owners and abutters of the WMA, my wife and I, she's here, Mary, we've been good stewards of the property. Yeah, you can hear me fine, I guess.
Yeah.
And we continually assure, we confidently assure you that we are currently in complete compliance with all the regulations, even though we're in disagreement with some of the findings. As you know, Mass Wildlife recently surveyed the property and established the boundary lines for the WMA. These markers distinguish the private property from state property, as reflected in Mr. Zimmer's letter from the wildlife. Our property has a stone wall that was erected many years ago, and it's about 2 feet from the WMA line. All the items that are in question are over that line, so I'm confused as to what that line's for. If the other side of the line is private property, and the items that they're talking about are those items. They're on our I don't get it.
Well, one of the main issues is that in terms of the wetland permitting, any work that's done within 100 feet of wetlands needs permitting from the Conservation Commission. So you're clearly within 100 feet of wetlands.
Right. We bought the property in February of this year, and we inherited basically the items that they're talking about. And we have since moved them up from the bottom to the top. But I would like to, have someone really clarify where that line is, because we really don't know, and we're not sure how that worked out.
The line of the property line, or the line of the 100-foot to the wetlands?
I guess both.
Or both.
Yeah.
Yeah, we can certainly meet there and go over this directly. But typically, if there's something of this nature, we have to issue this enforcement order, so there's something on record so that we can get this process started. So if you can take my card and give me a call, so that way we can set up a time to meet, we can certainly do that. And then if the commission has any further questions, now's the time to ask.
Any questions? Alyssa?
Mr. Nevis, are you just saying that all of the path work and everything was done before you purchased?
Yes.
Okay. And
Some of the indication is that some of this work is relatively recent.
That's what I don't. There is something that we did do that I would like to clarify. I kind of prepared this before I came. I'd like to read it to you, if that's okay.
Yes.
So when we bought the property, the area that abutted the WMA was literally a garbage dump. That area that we're talking about, where we have now that's cleaned up, but where these things that they're talking about is on the WMA side, and we didn't think it was. But anyway, it was riddled with piles of man-made trash, including beer cans, broken glass tires, all sorts of plastics, metal fencing, an old wheelbarrow, and even a pair of sneakers. There was literally rubbish sticking out of the ground, and we ended up removing a few barrels of non-degradable garbage, and were able to return the entire affected area into its natural state. So I thought we were doing pretty good there, and then when we got cited for this, we're like, oof, we did all that work, and getting praise, we're getting slammed around. So it was really disheartening.
Well, we can certainly meet, as I said, and go over it. I think the state clearly, in their viewpoint, thinks you're on their land, so that also has to be figured out as well. That's something you'll have to deal with them on, of course, not us as far as the property line. We'll just deal with what work is being done in the buffer zone to the wetland. Okay?
Yeah.
Anything else?
Dave, do you feel that they should be?
I do want to.
Wait, say,
Sorry.
Joe?
Dave, do you think they should be put in for an RDA after the fact?
Well, I think
I've been down to see this spot.
right, once we go over things, we can come to that conclusion.
Okay, so we'll just leave it up in the air and have you guys figure out what needs to be done?
Right.
I think if you come to the area, you'll see that it's really real. Our area is better than any area on the entire pond as far as cleanliness and what, all the garbage that we've removed. I think you'll be happy with it.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you so
Thank you.
much.
Next, enforcement order. Sorry?
We gotta ratify this.
Yeah.
Yes,
Motion to
ratify.
ratify?
I have a motion to ratify.
Second?
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstained?
Thank you so much.
All right, thank you.
The next enforcement orders for Louis A. Fasario, 248 Barker Road. Please come forward and identify yourself. Oh, yeah.
Hi, I'm Claire Fusaro.
And I'm Lou Fasaro.
Thank you. Mr. Bichette will speak to what he found.
So this site is at 248 Barker Road, which is right next door to Mr. Dwar's property at 250. And this site has had a wooden retaining wall reconstructed at the site with no permits from the commission. So an enforcement order was sent to the property owners to have them come in to address this issue with the commission. This is work that was done along an inland bank, along White Island Pond. So the owners are here tonight to explain what happened at the site.
Thank you. Claire?
Hi. What we did was replace a railroad tie wall, and that had been there since prior to 1975 when my parents bought our location. And so I have some pictures that show the former retaining wall, and that was destroyed by the 3 nor'easters that we had last winter. And so what we did was install pressure-treated timber. We pulled it back 3 feet from where the railroad tie wall had been. And so I would say what we did was, to the best of our ability, we removed a damaged system and replaced it with the pressure-treated wood. And I apologize that if we should have gotten permits prior. Would you like, I have pictures.
Yes, I'd like-
I think it's important to note that we're moving further away from the pond.
Anyway, so we have, I have copies for everybody. And
That's okay.
So, the original owner in the 1960s put in this timber wall and sand beach area, which you can see in the top row of pictures. And you can see an aerial photograph. Now, some of these pictures were taken in 1980. The aerial photograph was taken in 2000. And so that's part of my claim that this was an existing condition, that we did not put in really a new alteration. And you can see the damage that was done from the storm in this year, in the lower picture. So we had to do something, and what we did was install the pressure-treated wood that you see in the bottom right picture. Okay.
Questions? So that whole area had always been a sandbox?
Yes.
Basically.
Questions?
No question.
No question.
Recommendations?
Well, they probably are going to need to do an after-the-fact filing, because, you know, it is a project that should have had an application before the commission initially, before it was done. So I would say, at this point, that's what my recommendation would be for.
RDA?
That's up to the commission. Typically, something like that would be a notice of intent, because you're basically on the edge of the pond redoing a retaining wall.
Okay. Anybody in the audience speak to or for this project? Yes, please, please come forward and identify.
Hopefully you
Thanks.
can give them the idea to do it.
No, I mean,
No comment.
Just recall our last discussion about the bad winter, and that
Yeah.
was no joke. That was the problem here. And it knocked down the wall, and it created damage to my property, and we both acted faster than the permitting process, I guess. But, you know, I guess my question is, and this is something from my understanding as well, something like Claire and Lou did, what's the definition of repair versus, okay, now I have to do a permit? Shouldn't you have to maintain your property? Because behind this wall, if you go back and look at those pictures, behind this wood wall is a cement wall, which is leaning like this. And that wall actually, and you talked to the contractor, provides buffer to that wall, and he said, you need to keep that wood wall there to protect that other wall, the bigger wall, that's really holding up a foundation. So I just don't understand the delineation between when you need a permit versus when you're maintaining your property.
well, I think the answer is you always would need a permit if you're doing work either on the edge of a wetland resource area or in wetlands or within 100 feet. Even if it's just to maintain it, you still need, under the wetlands laws, a permit to do the work. So there's no real distinction. Any project, whether it's a new project or a repair or reconstruction, needs the same permitting to do it. Unless it's so minor, you know, in other words, unless, you know, you have such a minor project that it can be done in 5 minutes or whatever, but if it's a significant project, then it needs to go through the permitting review under the wetlands laws. Yeah.
Sure.
Chair,
Yes.
if I may add, if there's any question, we all have phones nowadays.
Thank you.
Call the office.
So what would you like us to do for the next step?
There's an application that you can pick up from me at our office, which is called a notice of intent, and I can go over what that involves with you.
Okay. And as we move forward, actually the landscaper who did this wall has a piece of repair that he needs to do that wasn't quite finished. And so does that become part of this permitting process?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, include all that work that you feel needs to happen.
Okay.
Yeah,
So I'll see you about that.
yes.
We'll see you.
And town hall is closed on Fridays.
Oh, okay, all right. Okay.
The rest of the week.
Is there a time frame you want us, I mean, we're seasonal, we're back and forth here. Is there a time frame you want us to work on the permitting process? ASAP?
Yeah, pretty much, yeah. That way we can just get it resolved.
Okay,
Yeah,
thank you.
all right, thank you.
Thank you.
Do you want these pictures back?
Well, if you'd like me to take them, sure, maybe you just
I
need
mean, we're
one
gonna
at the
keep
most.
some copies, but if you want some back for yourself.
I don't need them,
Okay, all right, great, thank you.
Thank you.
Motion to ratify.
I have a motion to ratify. Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Abstain, approved.
Long night.
Yay, nay, abstained. Four again, sorry, I'll try again. I have all in favor, opposed, abstained. Okay, we did it. Notice, got it done.
You started to confuse me.
So
we
essentially,
have-
all we have to do is get the permit for the replacement.
Go to his office.
That's either further back from the lake. Okay.
Yep, you need the notice of intent for the work that you've already done and are opposing for the correction that's still to be done, yes.
Whatever you want to do, put it on there.
Put it what?
Put it on there, on the new,
Oh,
on the
on
notice. That way there, you don't have to keep coming back,
Okay.
okay?
All right, we have certification of...
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Certification of compliances. James Curtin, 5 Priscilla Ave. Anybody here for that project? I see your garage is coming along nicely. Your garage is coming along nicely.
Oh, you've seen it.
Well, we were visiting next door.
Some year it's gonna be done.
After you do this one, these people are here for this last one, so.
Oh, we want to do that now?
Sure.
I would like to take certification of compliance for Donald Duggan, 73 Leonard Street, since we have people for it. And I want to sit. Please identify yourselves.
Don Dugan, president of Wareham Boatyard.
I'm Bill Madden from GAF. We filed the certificate of compliance request for Wareham Boatyard.
So we've got a request for a certificate of compliance for a project that was done at the Wareham Boatyard that involved floating dock structures and some other work at the site. The project has been completed. There is a bit of a change in terms of where the float systems were proposed versus where they were constructed. I don't think the change was significant in terms of how it impacted resource areas, but it is different than the original plan that was submitted. There was also some additional things that were stored in areas where they weren't supposed to be stored, and there was some crushed stone that got pushed into an area where it was not supposed to be as well. I've been working with Mr. Dugan to get those things corrected. He has gotten the majority of it corrected, as I understand, with the exception of some of the crushed stone that still needs to be removed. Mr. Madden was going to address that because I believe some of the municipal maintenance folks might come in and help with that, since some of that ended up being there because it got plowed there during snow plowing operations. So I'll let them speak to that matter.
Yeah, Dave, I talked to, well, Don talked with Dave Menard, and Dave's going to mobilize some of his manpower to remove the gravel or the stone that ended up in the wetland at the end of Leonard Street. So when they plowed Leonard Street, the pavement ends, then there's a little bit of stone area that got pushed a little further down toward where actually the platform to the dock is. But I guess one of the things, though, that I'll just, we understand that work needs to be done and cleaned up, but it almost seems that it could be perceived as an issue separate from the certificate of compliance, because that is, that's something that did occur on the site and does need to be remedied. There's no dispute about that, and there's no denying that it's going to be taken care of. But the certificate of compliance is for a specific order of conditions that related to some specific work. And that's what we were seeking the certificate of compliance for, is for that order of conditions. There's a purchase and sales agreement on the property. There's a new owner that's going to be purchasing the land and coming to town. It has different plans, I think, to take place up there. And I don't know if they're going to be an aquaculture, as I understand it, there's going to be an aquaculture component occurring at the boatyard as well, where the new owner is intending to raise seed stock, oyster seed stock in that location. It seems, he's a PhD and an aquaculturist, so he knows the best places for these. And I've had one meeting with him to discuss it, but that's really the purpose of requesting the certificate of compliance, so that we can get the clear title, so that the closing can proceed. I don't know if there's another mechanism that we can work through to get these other items, to ensure that the other items get taken care of on the site. Short of an enforcement order, I think that would be the only thing. We certainly can hold up issuance of the certificate of compliance to ensure that work gets done. And, I just don't know.
The only reason why it wasn't done was Dave told me to rake it, and we couldn't rake it. Because it was it'd been there so long, it was just not rakeable. Enough. We raked a lot of it.
Okay.
But with that, I called town maintenance department. They came out, and they said they'll do this Monday.
Okay.
And remove it. I would assume, or hope, that Dave and the town maintenance department would make sure, and my people will make sure it complies to what he's looking for and what's acceptable.
But one question we have is that the proposed float location is not what was built. Can you comment on that?
Yeah, what transpired was, and it was my ignorance, I came before the board with another organization, the CLE Engineering, with a plan, and it was approved. I went back to DEP to get my license, and they said I had to go to ZBA and get them to sign off. I went to ZBA, and one of the neighbors thought that this floats suddenly showed up and said the floats were on their side and they were upset about it and so forth. And we went around, and as an agreement with the ZBA, even though I had the right to leave the floats where they were, I tightened up the configuration on that side so it was acceptable to that neighbor.
Okay.
Then I took it to DEP, and they signed it and put it in. I have a 91. What I made my mistake about was I didn't realize at the time I should have gone back to you to get you to approve it, the change also.
I guess CLE did the original plan in 2005, and what happened is the order of conditions that we're seeking the certificate of compliance for is from that plan that CLE did in 2005. In 2007, Don had CLE rearrange the float configuration and establish a zone of reconfiguration. So the plan represents now, the as-built that we submitted to you represents the approved Chapter 91 location of the 2007 plan. What Don didn't do was come back before the commission to have those, to gain approval from the Conservation Commission to reconfigure the floats that DEP authorized.
Okay.
So he missed that step. So our plan reflects the order conditions, the Chapter 91 license that's currently in effect, but that work was done without the benefit of a Conservation Commission permit.
Dave, would we have more than likely approved this change?
Yes.
Okay. Questions on the board?
No.
None.
Questions?
I don't have a problem with that. The Chapter 91 was approved. As far as the stones, David, now, with those stones, that was
Plows.
caused from the town plows plowing the
It was
road.
the end of the street.
And I stopped by.
So that's not
tonight.
his fault.
No.
I stopped by tonight to look at it, and, you know, it was raked, but it was mounded and it was compacted, so it almost appears to me that it's a recurring event that stockpiled that stuff there. I mean, there's no way you can rake it out. I mean, it does have to be moved with a piece of machinery. And
Bless you, bless you, bless you. I've got no problem with that. It's not your fault. It's not your fault.
Wish of the commission.
Questions? Make a motion to issue a certificate of compliance.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained?
Did you say all in flavor?
I did.
Thank you
I
very much.
did. I was hoping you weren't going to
Ice
notice
cream.
that. I'm sorry.
thanks, and we'll see to it
You're
that
having a
that
rough
stone
night.
does get taken care of this week,
Thank
or
you.
next week, rather.
Monday.
Yeah, right, that's next week. Okay.
Thank you.
very
All right.
much, very much.
Thank you.
I really appreciate it.
Stuff that somebody else left behind at a prior meeting, huh? That must be from the zoning board of appeals. Thanks.
Oh, it's yours.
It is one of ours. Yeah, I found one in Rochester last night, too, another job.
Plain.
Time to get on the help. Okay.
All right.
you.
Next, certification of compliance for James
We're not
Curtin,
doing bad.
5 Priscilla Ave.
That was an older filing for a septic system that was done at this site. It's been completed for some time. They just never got the certificate of
Motion
compliance. So
I have a motion.
recommend approval.
I have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Abstain. Opposed, abstained. Done. Next one is
Take the cover off. Do you want a sip of my coffee?
Alternative Power and Energy, 418 County Road. I was napping before I came on.
I was too.
Okay.
This is a certificate of compliance request for the solar project that was done at 418 County Road. The project has been completed according to the order of conditions, so I recommend the issuance of the certificate of compliance for that project.
I have a motion.
Second.
I heard a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained. Okey dokey.
Thank you.
Next one is
Stack 'em
Phyllis
up.
Upham, 32 Pine Tree Drive.
This project at this location, was for the reconstruction of a section of collapsed granite seawall at this location. Again, the project has been completed according to the order, so I recommend the issuance of the
So
certificate
moved.
of compliance.
I have a motion. I have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, done.
On any other business, may I?
One, there's,
Just the meeting date.
we have a meeting date. Is there something you want to bring up?
Real quick,
Okay.
discussion on draft conditions. Can we have that added to the next week's thing with adding a vote on it?
Draft conditions?
Well, you could vote on it tonight if you want.
I don't understand what you're going at.
Stated conditions, we added two things. One, adding low nitrogen fertilizer.
Okay.
And
A time frame.
It should be in your folder, Ken, your mail folder. You
From
weren't here at the
from
last meeting, but this,
The last meeting, I haven't got that deep yet.
yeah,
and
there's
the
some
other one was for the 3-year on
draft
seeking,
conditions.
certificate
Yes.
of compliance or an extension.
We did highlight that everything under that was for discussion, business discussion and/or vote, so that we've already covered it to vote on it when we have some time in the evening. The only thing we really need to talk about is a meeting date of November 21st.
How's everybody on the travel?
On November 21st, which would be our second meeting in November, the town hall's not going to be open, so we're not going to be able to have a meeting on that date, so. So essentially, the next meeting date after that would be December 5th. So the commission would just need to verify that they are all in agreement not to have a meeting on that date.
I'm good.
I'm
So
good.
Okay.
moved.
I'm
So
good,
moved.
we're all good.
So move.
So we have,
But I won't be here on the 5th.
oh,
That's all right.
so
We'll
we,
forgive you.
Thank you.
our next meeting is November 7th, and the meeting after that is December 5th.
And I won't be here the 7th.
You will not be here this,
I have to go to Florida.
oh, and Jim is not here. I think, are you comfortable? Are you done?
Other than this, but we can deal with that another day.
It's too late. I don't want to talk about anything else right now. I think Mr. Leggett's ready to do the closing.
Second.
Awesome.
You read my mind.
That's right.
All in favor of adjourning?
Aye.
Opposed? We're done. Thank you very much.